Hello, everybody, and welcome to our housing Q&A. Now, we've decided to make this housing Q&A as part of our Don't Rush to Rent campaign, and our Don't Rush to Rent campaign has been launched by Rent Right, which is the fantastic organisation made up of community wardens, student mentors, guild advice, and community living. So it's a joint collaborative guild and university kind of project that we've got going on. So before I start, I'm just going to introduce you to our lovely panelists. So we'll start with student mentor representative, you, Izzy.
Hi, I'm Izzy and I'm one of the student mentors.
Fab, thank you, Izzy. We'll go next with community wardens.
Hi, my name's Beth and I'm one of the community wardens for Selly.
Fabulous. And community living.
Hi, I'm Jackie and I work in community living.
And I will be answering questions on behalf of Guild Advice. Okay, so let's start with the first question we've got. Now, these questions have kind of been compiled from stuff that we've been getting through from you guys, the questions that we want we know you want to be answered. So the first question is, many students are already looking for accommodation at the moment, but I haven't decided on who to live with yet. What can I do? So this is from a student.
So I'd say lots of students are in the same boat. Everybody starts talking about it, but many people aren't sorted, so don't at all panic. So we have a few different events. We're running Match Up Catch Up at the moment, which is just a way to meet new people generally. And then we'll also be running housemate finder events, and those will be starting in the next term and term 3. The dates aren't confirmed yet, but they will be next year. And you can also just try asking people on your course or having a discussion with your current flat just about what their plans might be, just to start the conversation.
Thanks, Izzy. And what would your advice be to students who are worried about viewings at the moment because of the current restrictions and because of this whole COVID situation?
So most places are offering sort of virtual viewings, and you could just maybe have a discussion with them, ask them to do perhaps a Zoom tour or just send over some videos to see it. So you can still see it, but it'll just be online.
Fab, thank you, Izzy. And now we'll move on to some questions for wardens. So Beth, you've been living in Selly Oak now for a bit, haven't you? And what would you say? Would you say Selly Oak is a safe place to live?
So yes, Selly Oak is a safe place to live. I understand it can be a bit daunting, you know, if you're looking at Fab and Fresh and seeing posts. But actually, statistically, Selly Oak has a lower crime rate than Edgbaston, which is a neighbouring district. And the community wardens, we work really closely with like the local police, and we carry out safety patrols quite regularly. Even during COVID, just to make sure that the area is safe and and anything that we see and flag up, then we really work to create that sort of safe feeling community. If you feel unsafe, you can always contact the community wardens, and we can give you the best like tips on how to keep yourself safe, how you can sort of relax in Selly Oak. And also we offer more support, such as we offer personal alarms, so like safety alarms, which we give out regularly. So if you want them, then please feel free to get in contact with us.
Fab, thank you. Yes, I think some first years can be a bit daunted by the idea of Selly Oak, and there's a bit of a perception around it being kind of an unsafe place. And as much as we do need to be aware, I think it's also important to remember what you've said there, that it is generally quite a safe place to live. So now moving on to living, where can a student find out more information about house hunting?
Okay, there's lots of information on both websites, so our community living website and the Guild of Students website. So if you go into community living, it is under information for students, and if you go on the Guild website, it's under support. So there's lots of information giving you advice on house hunting and sort of how to go about it, what to look for in a house, and there's further events and advice coming in January as well. Fab,
thank you, Jackie. And now I've got a question for advice, which I'll answer here. So this question was from a student saying, how do we organise household bills? And now I've been a student myself, so Izzy and Beth as well, and I'm sure we've all got experience of trying to organise this. It can be a bit complicated, but you need to basically just form an agreement with your housemates to share the bills, and it's advisable to name all tenants on the bill. You may also wish to look into a bill sharing company, which can be useful. However, there are often additional charges for this. So it depends. If you've got someone that's willing to kind of do all the admin work, then that might be for you, or alternatively, you can save time and go through a company. It doesn't charge that much extra. Okay, fab. And now we've got a question about guarantors, Jackie. So this question is, do we have to have guarantors? And if so, how can I find one?
Okay, not all landlords and agents do go with guarantors. You may find some that don't. So it's worth doing a bit of research into which agencies and landlords wish to go with a guarantor. If they are asking for a guarantor, then yes, that would be part of the agreement. So you would have to go with the guarantor, and it's always better to check out the terms of the guarantor. It is a UK-based guarantor that they're generally going to be asking for, and there are options out there as well for companies such as your guarantor who may be able to help as well. Okay.
Fab. That's great. Thanks, Jackie. And just another question. So how much deposit should students be looking to be paying?
Okay, the deposit depends on the number of students or the total rent above. So generally it would be about the equivalent of 5 weeks rent to pay as a deposit. If it's above sort of 50,000, so one of the larger houses, then you could be looking at paying about 6 weeks equivalent. Right,
okay. And what is a deposit protection scheme? Do you mind explaining that?
Okay, it's a legal requirement for your deposit to be secured. So there's 3 government-backed schemes. There's more information on both of the websites about all those schemes and on the gov.uk website. But basically it works as a third party. So it's looking after the interests of your deposit. It's always worth getting photographs, information about your property repairs, keeping an eye on those, and then if you do have a dispute at the end of the tenancy, then you can go to the deposit scheme to help them, ask for help for them to sort it out for you.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jackie. And I've got a question here about council tax, which I know sometimes confuses students. So the question is, what is the eligibility for council tax exemption, and how can I make sure that I will get an exemption? So you are exempt from paying council tax if you are a registered full-time student. That's like kind of the underlying thing here. And if you're in a thesis awaited status, you may be exempt depending on which council you're registered to. If everyone in your house is a full-time registered student, then the whole house will be exempt. But if there are non-students living with you, then it's the responsibility of the student to pay the council tax bill, but there may be a reduction. And dependents of Tier 4 visa full-time students are also exempt from council tax as long as correct evidence is provided to the council. So we're going to go back to mentors now. So Izzy, would you mind telling us a bit more about how the housemate finder events will work with COVID restrictions and what kind of support there'll be if you're waiting till January to look for a house?
Yeah, so in terms of the COVID restrictions, we're looking to still have our housemate finder events, but they'll probably be online. And we haven't got any confirmed dates for them. But if you keep an eye on our social media, we'll sort of post all the information about it when we do have them. But they will still be going ahead. And if you're sort of waiting to go through with the house, then we'll be hosting a housing fair next term. It'll be at the start of next term, and there we'll sort of interact with landlords and other departments like the community wardens, and that will just help you get some more information about what the right place for you guys will be next year.
Thanks, Izzy. Yeah, that housing fair should be really informative, I think, and have some really great information. And Jackie, I've got a question here for you. So where can I find good landlords? I know hopefully there'll be some good landlords at the housing fair, but is there a way of kind of identifying which ones are good?
Okay, yes, of course. We recommend landlords who are accredited with the Midland Landlord Accreditation Scheme, and their names, a full list of landlords and agents can be found on their website. We are also working closely with a number of landlords in the area who are all MLAS accredited anyway, but under the lettings membership scheme. So that's to look at sort of improving the process. between you moving out of university accommodation into private sector. And you can also find landlords and agents on the Birmingham Student Pad website. They are all MLAS accredited there as well. So we only go with the recommended with Midland Landlord accreditation is the main one. Okay.
Fab, thank you. And is it right that you can get your tenancy agreement checked at Living before you sign?
You can. Both Community Living and the Guild of Students both do contract checks. So if you wanted anything like that, just contact Community Living at contacts, and for the Guild Advice at Guild. The Guild also do a drop-in session during term time. So you could always just take your contract there between 12 and 2 as well. Otherwise, it's appointment based.
Fab, thank you, Jackie. And then I've got a question here for Guild advice. So this one is, should the landlord release me from my contract or reduce my rent if I can't move in due to COVID restrictions? So the message that we're giving out here is that once you have signed a tenancy, you've entered into a legally binding agreement, but you may be able to end your tenancy early by finding a replacement tenant. The landlord or letting agent, though, has no obligation to release you from your tenancy. So I know that that's kind of a regular question at the moment because of the COVID restrictions. And it's just worth talking about kind of how to advertise your room, or find replacement tenants if you need to. So many tenancy agreements will give you the option of ending your tenancy early if you find a replacement tenant. And ways to do this include asking your landlord for help by advertising your room on your behalf, but they may charge an additional price for this. Or you can also advertise your room on kind of UOB Facebook groups such as Fab and Fresh, that kind of thing. Quite a few people do that. And yeah, just kind of asking your housemates or course mates to look out for or be aware of anyone that's looking for accommodation. There's some top tips there. Fab. And now we'll come back to Wardens. Beth, if that's okay. So
yeah.
What would you suggest to someone who is worried about living next to horrible neighbours, to someone that might have come from halls of residence and are worried about moving into the community and worried about the kind of neighbours that they might encounter there? What would be your advice?
Okay, so I know it can be unsettling, not knowing who you're going to live with when you move into a big house. It's a lot different from halls. But don't worry, community wardens are here, and we are always working in Selly to create a to keep antisocial behaviour to a minimum and create community cohesion. So if you do have any concerns about your neighbours once you've moved in, you can always contact the community wardens and we'll do everything we can to help. We found that many students love the move to Selly. You know, it's you're closer to your friends, and you can get to know other people. And when you move in, we really recommend just knocking on your neighbour's door and introducing yourselves to get that like dialogue going. So if you did have any problems in the year, you can just go straight to your neighbours and see if you can talk them out.
Definitely, that's some really good advice. Thank you, Beth. And Fab, we're just going to go back to Living now with a few more questions to wrap up. So, Jackie, do you mind explaining what joint and several means?
Okay, joint and several is a term used in an agreement where you all sign the same agreement. So if you all sign in one document, you all become joint and severally liable, which is generally for the rents, damages, deposits, everything like that, to make sure everything's paid. What you do have to be careful of is if one of the tenants doesn't pay, then the landlord or agent can come to the remaining tenants to gain the money. That would be worst case scenario. Generally, they will try the student who has defaulted to get that person to pay and possibly their guarantors before they would actually do that. But just bear in mind who you're signing with and that you are happy with them when you're actually signing, because it is something, although the person who's defaulted is ultimately responsible, it does mean that the landlord or agent could come to you to request the money. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. That is, you know, another reason why it's important to kind of really think about who you are deciding to rent with. So finally, Jackie, for you, this is a question that says, what happens if I decide to leave university having signed an agreement?
Okay, once you've signed an agreement, there's generally no break clause in it. So you would be liable for potentially the 12 months that you're actually signing for. So please bear that in mind when you do put pen to paper and sign. If you do then decide to ultimately leave the university, you are still liable. So it would be a case of finding a replacement that is agreeable to the tenants who are still living there and the landlord as well. Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. And now I'm just going to fast forward to when you are living in the accommodation, or maybe when you come into the end of your tenancy, with this question here, which is, what fees can the landlord or agent charge? So I've got the answer here, which says, in 2019, there was a new Tenancy Fee Act introduced, which specifies the fees that landlords and agents are legally allowed to charge you. So prior to this act, you could be charged for numerous things. So now it's quite specific what you can be charged for. You can only be charged for the rent, a refundable tenancy deposit, a refundable housing deposit, payments to change the tenancy when requested by the tenant, capped at £50, payments associated with early termination of the tenancy, or payments in respect of utilities, communication services, TV licence, council tax, and a default fee for late payment of rent and replacement of a lost key / security device. Okay, so we've got through all our questions quite quickly there, which is good. And that concludes our question and answer session. So thank you so much for joining, guys. Just on a final note, for anybody watching, if you do have any more questions, or if there's anything we've not explained, not answered clearly enough, then feel free to message, email on all our various different channels. We're all on social media. You'll be able to find our emails on the Guild website, on the university website. And yeah, just remember, our message this year is don't rush to rent. Make sure you're making a measured, sensible decision. And remember, housemates make a house, and look out for all the exciting housing activity which will be being launched in January. Lots of it to come. So yeah, just remember to reach out if you need any help. Drop us an email, and hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions if we haven't already done so. So thank you very much for watching.